When your business isn't succeeding, when your content is not getting the views and the likes that you think that it deserves, it can be incredibly tempting to blame anyone other than yourself. To think that it's the algorithm's fault, or your equipment, your parents, your zip code, your genetics, whatever it is, right? But I personally believe that if my business is failing, it is no one's fault but my own. And even if those factors do objectively play a role, it is still my fault, because I allowed myself, my focus, to drift away from the only thing actually under my control, which is me. So in this video, I want to walk you through the only two reasons why your marketing is failing, how to fix it, and the tough love that I kind of wish that someone had given me when I first started. And I know that this kind of aggressive accountability message can come across as hustle culture-y, that can be kind of alienating to some people, that it can come off as ableist, but I'm very deliberately not trying to be like that. Like, I do not think that we all have the same 24 hours or the same energy or the same access to resources. And full disclosure here, I have a chronic illness. I have Hashimoto's disease. It's something that I have to regularly deal with. And my mother was homeless for a good chunk off and on of her entire adult life. She is severely mentally ill and disabled, and I grew up very low income. I know what it is like. The house that I grew up in was foreclosed on. I know what it's like to be in a tricky situation. We'll put it that way. But I still believe this. I still think that it is healthier and more constructive to take personal responsibility for my own failure rather than blame it on circumstances that I have no control over. That it is ultimately more constructive to constantly ask myself what I can do rather than stew in feelings of bitterness and jealousy. And when we do this, when we focus on our own effort and identify areas of potential improvement, the shift towards growth can be incredibly fast. A friend recently came to me really frustrated because she had been posting for months and just wasn't seeing any growth. She was blaming the algorithm. She was like, "Kelsey, I feel like I'm in the shadow realm. I've been shadow banned," basically. She was convinced that like the platform hated her or that her niche was maybe too saturated. So I asked her, who in your space is growing right now? And off the top of her head, she listed two creators basically immediately. And together we sat down. We looked at those creators, watched their most popular videos, and noticed that they were doing things that she wasn't. Their content was just better. Their hooks were stronger. They got to the point faster. They had better graphic design, more visual hierarchy, more contrast, and most importantly, the topics they chose and the way they framed those topics made it more exciting and more approachable for new people. And suddenly, we had a list of actual concrete things for her to work on, and examples of creators who were doing this successfully. It wasn't that the solution to her problem was out of her reach. It wasn't that she couldn't do this. It was that she hadn't sat down to figure out what the actual problems were, that she hadn't taken personal accountability yet. And that's okay, but it is what's holding you back. And if you feel this way, do the exact same thing that I did with her. I want you to role play as Sherlock Holmes for a second. Pick 3 creators in your space who are doing better than you and do a deep dive into their work. Take note of what topics they talk about, how they showcase their work, how their content is structured, how they use graphic design, and be as specific as you possibly can. Don't just say, oh, their thumbnails are better. Ask yourself why their thumbnails are better. How much text do they use? How readable is it? How many focal points do they have? And where are they? What is the contrast like? The more specific you get here, the more actionable your insights will be. I'm serious. Like, if you make a point of doing this, you will find differences. There will be things they are doing that you are not. And all you have to do, truly, is figure out how to do those, how to put your own spin on it, how to get better. Because if your marketing isn't getting you results, there are only 2 reasons. And the first is that it just isn't very good. And the good news is that you can fix that. That is completely under your control. I don't know if there has literally ever been any other point in human history where education is as accessible as it is today. You can truly learn basically any skill that you want for free on the internet. And I personally prefer to believe that things are skills, okay? Things in life are just a skill. Business is a skill. Marketing, a skill. Even something as mundane as being charismatic or attractive is a skill. What, you think that I like woke up looking like this? No, I have put work into curling my hair, wearing makeup, buying the right clothes. All of that is just a skill. And of course, some people have a natural aptitude that others do not in certain areas. But that does not mean that you cannot get better. And if you're thinking to yourself, no, I'm sorry, Kelsey, I get what you're saying, but this is just too hard. I don't think that getting better at this skill is possible for me. Okay, I believe you. I believe that it's too hard. I believe that you can't do this. Does that feel useful? Does that feel constructive? Does that feel healthy? Does that feel like a mindset that will take you far in life? Or do you feel like you just won an award that wasn't worth winning? And now that you have it, you realize that you never wanted this award in the first place. Because personally, I prefer to view the world through this lens of possibility and opportunity, to never think of a fact about myself or my circumstances as this immutable thing that I cannot change, to be open to change and hard work and acceptance of my own failures. And if this makes me hopelessly naive, then so be it. But in my experience, you get better at the things that you put work into. And if you put in an unreasonable amount of effort toward a goal, then it becomes unreasonable for you to not see at least some results. So let's say that I did that analysis activity that I mentioned earlier with a whole group of students. So each of them had a concrete list of things to work on. And then I split them up into two groups. I tell group A to post twice a week for 3 months to work on those skills. I tell group B to just kind of work vaguely on one really important, really amazing piece of content that represents a massive leap forward in those skills. Which group do you think would actually do better? Probably group A, right? Because they put in the reps, they put in the work day in and day out to achieve those things, to work on those skills. And that brings me to the next reason why your marketing isn't working. You are just not doing enough of it. So content creators talk about this trade-off between quality and quantity all the time, and it's a conversation worth having, but I often find that people get the wrong takeaway from it, because the truth is that you can only learn to execute quality by initially going for quantity. You can study successful creators and make lists of what to improve on all day long, but until you actually sit down and start making 5, 10, 20 pieces of content, you will not internalize those lessons. You won't develop an intuition for what works, and it is only through the development of that intuition that you can then scale back output. By optimizing for quantity at first, you are accelerating your learning process. You are getting better faster. But when you are in this learning phase, you do not have the privilege of inconsistency. Success, in my mind, has just two parts to it. Number one, you stick with one thing long enough to see it actually work. That means 3 to 6 months of consistent output, and once a week should kind of be the minimum here, in my opinion. The more reps that you can put in straightforwardly, the better, right? Again, we want to optimize for learning. And number two, identifying the places where you are failing, where you need to get better or change course, and just doing that. Having this ability to self-reflect and be honest with yourself is truly one of the most valuable things that you can have in life. It will take you so far, even outside of business. Most creatives don't fail because they're not smart enough or not talented enough, but because they don't stay consistent long enough to see something work, and they're not willing or able to be honest with themselves about their own failure. So many folks are so determined to avoid discomfort and to protect their own ego and not take responsibility that they ruin their lives. And to hopefully hammer this home, I'm going to tell you a story that I have never told on the internet before, and I hope that it'll have some impact. I have not spoken to my father in over 15 years for a bunch of reasons, but one of them is that he has never had a job. He has kind of completely failed in life. He sits at home at the edge of his bed, doesn't have a chair even at the edge of his bed, where he has like a pushed up desk next to it, and he plays video games. The same video game for the last 15 years, every single day, all day. And he refuses to take any responsibility for his own lack of success. He blames anyone other than himself. And my father is extremely mentally ill. He refuses to get treatment for that. He doesn't leave the house. He doesn't see a doctor. He hasn't gone to the dentist in almost 15 years. You can imagine what that would look like in a person. And if you know someone in your life that has a really serious mental illness, you know how impossible it is to help them seek treatment if they don't want it, and he does not want it. And I think his life is sad. I think it's depressing. I don't particularly like him for a lot of reasons that I won't get into here. It's a long story. But it's a tragedy, I think, to see someone who is smart and could be capable waste their life rotting in front of a screen, never taking any responsibility for their own lack of failure, to be so determined that it's someone else's fault that he doesn't take any action for himself. And what's even sadder is that I have small siblings, still minors, who are suffering because of his own inability to get his shit together. And it is really sad. And I'm sure that there is some pain associated with all this inaction that he feels in some sense kind of paralyzed, right? Like he's already wasted so much time that he should just waste more, that his life is already over. But that's not true. He could at any point decide to wake up and be a better person, to take actions, to get a job, to get go to the fucking doctor even, to do anything. And the fact that he doesn't is a tragedy. I honestly don't believe that he ever will, but I desperately hope that he will someday prove me wrong. I want more than anything to be proved wrong here. I would love for him to be someone worthy of my respect, but I don't think he will. And the thing is, humans have been wrestling with these problems for thousands of years. This is not new. While the term sunk cost fallacy was only really invented in the 80s, classical philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca were writing about these themes almost 2,000 years ago. And in all of that time, we have only ever discovered one solution: to take responsibility for your own failure and to change course even when it hurts. So, with that, here is what I want you to take away from having watched this video. If your marketing isn't working, there are only two reasons. Either it's not good enough or you are not doing enough of it. Both of those things are completely within your control, and it won't feel good to admit that you are failing. It will really hurt your ego. You will have to be honest with yourself in a way that's really uncomfortable, but that discomfort is temporary. The regret of not trying, that is what will haunt you. That's this video. Thank you for watching. If you want to watch more on the screen, I'm also hosting a live workshop pretty soon. If you want to go to that, link is in the description. The link is in the description. I can talk, I promise. Okay, bye.